Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill, Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Caine, and I'm your only host today because Jeff and Jay are on sabbatical. I'm going to be recapping the doubleheader road trip weekend. Let's just get right into it, I guess. I don't have stall count, so no trivia today. The Detroit game was all right. There were not a huge amount of key takeaways with this one. Defense did pretty solid. Very good Noah Hansen performance. Matic Petrovic had a Callahan. He did really well. I believe it was his season debut. Maybe I don't know if it was his team debut, but I know his name, Petrovic, has been kind of floating around for a while, so it was good to see him have a good game. Noah Hansen, I kind of glossed over him, but he, I believe, scored his first goals of the season, so shout out Noah Hansen. Again, he's been a really key part of Minnesota's defense, and just getting the disc moving downfield, getting those blocks, generating the opportunity to get some points. And then lastly, Leo Salvel Fernandez, I would say he is a player that I'm going to keep an eye on for the rest of the season after this weekend. He's one of those players where, as the season gets further on, you need to rely on the depth of a roster, especially once you get to playoffs and championship weekend. And so I think having Salvo Fernandez in the roster, getting more points, getting more reps in, is crucial at this point in the season to get him ready for games against those opponents in championship weekend. Overall, though, Detroit game was, again, not a lot to take away. The Chicago game, however, I think gave us a lot more to look at. Overall, I think our offense did really well. We got a few stats here. I know I'm not a stat guy, but Jeff and Jay aren't here, so I got to do some stat stuff, right? Minnesota had a 95% completion rate, which was slightly lower than Chicago's 96%, but still high numbers, good completion rate. We were 63% on hucks, which is pretty solid, honestly. 5 for 8 on hucks. Yeah, not much else to say there. Again, stats kind of speak for themselves. That's why I don't like stats. Our O-line conversion was a 57%, and our hold percent was a 67%. So, again, both pretty solid. And our red zone conversion was 88%, 14 of 16. So, honestly, yeah, really good offensive performance by the Wind Chill Friday night, that was. And a few players from that. We got Colin Berry, was on offense and defense one of the key playmakers. I think he is possibly the fastest goal scorer on the team. It feels like every time he's on a point, the team has an energy to get to the end zone just a little quicker. He's a very noticeable presence on the field, whether he's on offense or defense. So I think having Colin Berry is just honestly such a difference maker every point. And the other kind of part of that is Jordan Taylor. He's also goated. He's so clutch. There are so many times where there's not a lot of opportunities downfield, and Jordan Taylor will make that opportunity. Whether it's, canceling an outcut and bailing out, or, there's not a whole lot and he makes the outcut, whatever it is, right? He is able to read the field and get positioning almost like he's got spider sense or something. And then lastly, I know we talk about him a lot, Gordon Larson has been just incredible. Every time he's 5 yards away from the end zone and he catches it, he'll just float into the end zone. He better than anybody else does what my girlfriend calls the bunny hop, the frisbee bunny hop, where you catch it in the air and you wiggle your body so your feet land in. You look like a bunny, right? I think Gordon Larson is the epitome of that. He's single-handedly the reason our red zone conversion is so high this season. I feel like every time we need just a quick little goal at the end there, Even if he's not catching it from like downfield, if he's good at the red zone as well. Gordon Larson is just a great player all around. It's so hard to speak to like his ability. Go watch any game with like Gordon Larson specifically in mind, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And then lastly, the veterans this game, I think, versus Chicago, I think had a really good standout performance. And it really brought to my attention how well the veterans have been doing this season in general. Caine, Mattis, Vanuka, and like I mentioned earlier, Colin Berry, and so many others are all putting up some numbers that are rivaling some numbers that are just as good as numbers they were putting up in what would you call their prime. And this is after they've been on the team for 10 years. So huge shout out to some of those guys that are just, putting up some ridiculous numbers. I mean, Brandon Mattis is playing some of the best defense in the league right now, and he's like 80. So good job, guys. Lastly, we got the weekly forecast. We have an upcoming home game against Chicago that is this Saturday. And what this could do is guarantee Minnesota the first place seed in the playoffs, which means we would host the last round of playoffs, and then it would kick Chicago out of playoff contention, I believe. I don't know for sure, but what I'm more interested in is that if we win next week, it would help build up some momentum for the weekend after, where New York is coming to Minnesota. But before we get there, we got to take on Chicago at home. So we will see you at Seafoam Stadium. That's all I got for today. Stay chilly. Ka-chow.